Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star Sports Podcast. It's Tuesday, August 2nd, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff, sitting next to
Vahe Gregorian.
How about that? Sharing the intro today. We're talking Royals with beat writer Lynn Worthy and the aforementioned Vahe Gregorian. It's trade deadline day, and the trade winds are blowing both directions for the Royals, who have acquired a couple of pitchers, while we wait to see who might be headed out of Kansas City. Also, be sure to stick around for the final few minutes of today's show. You'll hear a clip produced by the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum with the help of MLB.com about Buck O'Neil. This was made for his induction into the National Baseball Hall of Fame, but Vahe, it wasn't played at the Baseball Hall of Fame.
It was not, because of the threat of inclement weather. They streamlined the service down to 4 hours.
4 hours.
Down to about 2.5 or 3 hours. So this was not played there, and it was kind of a special treat for those who came to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum on Friday.
Okay, it's narrated by Museum President Bob Kendrick.
Yes, it is.
It was one of, if not, not one of. He's the best storyteller in baseball right now.
Best storyteller in baseball in his greatest field of expertise. It's a nice combination.
It is. So you'll hear it late in the show on SportsBeat KC. All right, this show started as a SportsBeat Live. Let's get started. Good morning and welcome to SportsBeat Live, our weekly conversation about the Kansas City Royals with you and people in the media who know the best. And today that is beat writer Lynn Worthy and columnist Vahe Gregorian. We're coming to you from different places. Lynn, of course, is in Chicago following the Royals, and Vahe and I are in St. Joseph, Missouri, where the Chiefs are conducting training camp. But we are here to talk Royals on this show that is presented by the University of Kansas Health System, and you will hear from them later in this program. Guys, it's trade deadline, a lot going on. A lot has already happened for the Royals. The trade winds are blowing both ways for the Royals, and we're going to get into that in a second. But I wanted to return to a pitch from last night's game and a swing from the bat of Salvador Perez, and I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on the distance that this ball traveled last night. So, Monty, let's run the clip, just a short clip of the home run that Salvador Perez hit in Chicago last night. I'd say he got all of that one, Lynn.
When they have to pan the camera up because they did as much as they could and then still missed it, then yeah, that means it went pretty far usually.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it went 452 feet according to the Chicago White Sox, but that's what I want to talk about. So what do you got, Vahe?
Well, just this. It reminded me off the bat of a ball that one Michael Jack Schmidt hit in the dome in Houston that hit a speaker nobody knew was there up in the upper tier, and I think it was ruled a ground rule home run. I don't exactly remember how that played out, but at first glimpse on the camera view, you see it just going up. I mean, you don't realize it's going that far back. And I don't know, Lynn, you I'm sure know more about how that metric is calculated than I do, but it seems like it might have been longer than that.
It was disputed by many last night. I can tell you that. I think, and there was one reporter. I think he was covering for AP last night who. I don't think he asked a question about anything but the distance of that. 2 reporters and 2 players and 2 Mike Matheny. That's all he was there to talk about was the distance of that home run. And he'd been around Chicago for a while, talking about how he'd never seen one go up there. I'm pretty sure. Well, I know Matheny was asked, and he said he didn't remember seeing one ever go up there. Salvy, who obviously has played in this division for a long time, of course, when he was asked, he's like, no, I don't remember. And they just said, pretty good. So, yeah. And then, Whit Merrifield said 450. He said that's a glitch if they're saying 450. That's all of 500. So, it was funny because I think that same reporter was asking me, he said, was that further than what he hit the other day? in New York? And I was like, well, yeah, I said that 450 was further. I was like, I'm pretty sure I've seen him hit 450 in different ballparks. Like I'm thinking in Kaufman, I think he's had some that have been about that distance. But yeah, I was like, it wasn't shocking to me when I heard the number, but looking back at the replay, it's more shocking that the number was 450 when you see that replay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, it's the ball went over the wall. It cleared the fence. That's the only important thing. It gave the Royals their first run in what became a 2-1 victory over the White Sox. And of course, Salvador Perez is back with a vengeance from his thumb injury. He is just on the same kind of tear. It seems like that he was on a year ago when he was hitting grand slams with regularity. So it's great to see him on a heater. No Royals player I've seen in a long time hits the ball like this in a sustained way like Salvador Perez. He's just been it's been wonderful to see. But so this home run distance thing that started in baseball, I don't know how many years ago, and I remember when it became a regular feature at baseball games to measure the distance. And I should say, Lynn's checking his phone because today is the trade deadline, and we may lose Lynn at any time as he's reporting on trades. We're absolutely going to get to that. But I actually saw a chart of Kauffman Stadium and how they measure home runs. So, if a ball hit the Pepsi porch sign or if it hit the bottom of the scoreboard, they knew exactly how far the ball went. And I imagine that's true of all the ballparks. Just there's some sort of metric to determine how far a ball is hit. But the way I looked at last night's was it's 60 feet from home plate to the pitcher's mound. So if you added sort of from the back of the center field fence, added a home plate to the pitcher's mound distance, that's another 60 feet. I think the ball traveled farther than that distance. As we see it bounding up the stairs beyond 2 layers of landmarks out in center field. So I wonder if there might be some adjustment on that today.
Like to see that.
I would too.
Do they go back and do sort of forensics after the fact? Just to I don't know. I don't recall that they've done that, but why wouldn't they if they can?
They might need to.
Well, I think Salvy's career long is 406. I don't know where it was, but I think I saw it was 460 something feet. Maybe it's 460 even. I can't imagine he had a ball that ball last night. It was less than his 460 footer. But anyway, that's all beside the point. But it was interesting to me.
Can I just amend this thing real quick? I looked up the Mike Schmidt thing. The ball hit a speaker 117 feet high and 300 feet deep, but it was ruled a double.
It's a great double. Kevin said that you just go to the dent in the concrete.
Oh, a single. It fell for a single. Sorry.
Okay. Just measured the dent in the concrete, Kevin says, and Steve adds, or the hole in the concession stand sign. That's a good way to do it. It should be clearly marked out there. So anyway, hey, the other feature from last night's game was the pitching of Daniel Lynch. What a really nice performance. And Lynn, how about just a quick thought on how Daniel Lynch pitched and what a good sign that was for the Royals.
I thought maybe the most telling thing was afterwards to hear him say how good it was to be able to have just a normal start, because it seems like for the better part of the last month, it's been blister, cut on the finger, IL stints, just starts and stops, and it just wasn't, it didn't look just natural or smooth with him on the mound. And then last night just came out firing and just shut it down for, the better part of 6 innings. Until the very end, I thought he was probably going to get through 6. I think he had 2 hard hit balls at the end. There was a double and then a line out to Whit Merrifield that was hit like over 100 miles an hour. But up until then, they hadn't done much with him at all. Attacked with the fastball, mixed his pitches. That was sort of what we had thought, coming into this season, like this might be what this guy is on a regular basis. And so, like I say, I thought just to hear him say it was cool to have a normal start, a regular outing with these guys. I thought that maybe said it all. Okay,
trade deadline today, and the Royals have already picked up a couple of pitchers in the last 48 hours. Luke Weaver traded, for Emmanuel Rivera. Traded Emmanuel Rivera to the Diamondbacks, and the Royals get a right-handed pitcher in Luke Weaver. Interesting guy, interesting numbers for Luke Weaver. And when I mentioned at the top of the show that the trade winds are blowing both ways, this was unusual to lose a rookie who had shown some promise, I thought, and I thought maybe was a candidate for third baseman of the future for the Royals, for a pitcher who's been in the bigs for several years. And what do you think is behind this one, Lynn?
Well, the first thing that came to my mind, and we talked to JJ Piccolo briefly yesterday after the trade, and he didn't shoot it down. He didn't confirm it, but he didn't shoot it down. The first thing that came to my mind was that you're adding bullpen pieces because you might be moving somebody at this deadline today. And you don't. And the bullpen has had its struggles this season. So if you're going to move one of your top guys, you can't just have nothing to slot in there other than what you got in the minors right now that either is down there for a reason, one reason or another, either not ready or has things to work on. So, and when JJ says, well, if we feel like we find something that makes sense that we're protected, to me that says, that's on the table, that they might move one of their guys, whether that's Barlow, whether that's Stalmont, somebody like that, and now you've got another person to slide right into the bullpen. So that was the first thing that came to my mind with that. And we've heard, obviously, there's been reports, rumors that, whether it's Stalmont or Barlow, or maybe they get in package with one of the other guys, that those could be some of the deals that are floating out there today by 5 p.m. Central.
Boy, that seems like such sound thinking, Lynn. I mean, and Blair, you really, I think, brought up the essence of the point, which is if you think you've got a guy that is a potential piece in the future and you're moving him, that's counter to what we've seen the Royals doing, counter to sort of the whole movement, and you can only feel like it's predicated on some other moves.
And Lynn, that's we just mentioned Weaver. There's I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Anthony Misiewicz. Is that?
I believe that's how it's said.
Am I in the ballpark, Misiewicz?
I believe so. I had somebody last night after I repeated it, the way they said it, and that was however many hours ago, and I'm sure that I would butcher it right now, but yeah, I think Misiewicz is one of those two is how you say it, and he's a left-hander. He's going to go straight to AAA, but Weaver sounds like will be coming. If he's not already in Chicago, he's going to be on his way. I think he wasn't coming from far away. I think they were in, I want to say Cleveland, or somewhere, maybe Ohio. Maybe I'm not sure if it's Cleveland or Cincinnati, but somewhere not too far, I believe. So he'll be able to make the trip soon, and then they'll have to make a roster move, assuming that roster move isn't a trade. But yeah, so he's going to be here, and it was interesting that it sounded as though he's a guy that they've had their eyes on for a while, and actually Mike Matheny has familiarity with because he was drafted by St. Louis, and he was actually part of the Goldschmidt trade. So he'd been with the Cardinals, but the Royals had their eyes on him for a while. JJ said that they felt like there was still some potential there as a starter, but for the rest of this season, at least, he's going to be a bullpen guy, and then they'll cross those other bridges later. But so yeah, he's going to be here, fairly soon. Whether that's added to what they have in the bullpen or not, it remains to be seen. But to circle back to Rivera, I think really Rivera was starting to get to be in some ways the odd man out. I mean, he'd just been sent back down to the minors. I think it was Friday. And we've seen Nicky Lopez playing a lot of third base. Hunter Dozier's been back at third base for the first time in a while. When you had Toronto and you had all the youngsters up there, Michael Massey, who was a Gold Glove winner for the minor leagues at second base, got a start at third base. He had a couple of starts in the minors, just 2, I think, before that at third base. So I think they're looking at options that they have at third base, either for right now or going forward. Keeping in mind that actually at the beginning of the season, Bobby Witt Jr. was your starting third baseman, that they felt like they could move him.
Yeah, all of a sudden it's become a little bit of a mystery position, hasn't it? It's almost like the last couple months of the season might determine who's the opening day starter at third base next season.
And a name that I forgot to mention there, and we haven't seen him at third base yet, but it was one of the spots that they had been getting some time for MJ Melendez in the minor leagues. Last year, third base was where they had got some time. Then this year, it's been the outfield. And I mean, yesterday we saw him in the outfield. But you have, basically between the corner infield, the corner outfield positions, a lot of guys you're trying to rotate along with DH too. Between Prado and Pasquantino being first baseman, and Prado obviously being an elite defender there. But that you saw him in the outfield this weekend. Dozier's another guy who's going to play corner infield, corner outfield. Like I say, Melendez. Olivares is on the IL still, but when he comes back, he's one of those guys. Kyle Isbell in the outfield. So you just have a lot of different places, or a lot of different guys that you're trying to rotate into not a whole lot of places.
This is maybe a funny way to look at this, but as they keep experimenting, Prado is so, plus, just terrific first baseman. Does that tell you his athleticism is such that they really ought to give him more and more of a whirl in the outfield in the coming weeks just to see how that translates? Because obviously it gives you some different options if you can do that. But obviously he's also a much better defender than Pasquantino. So I don't know what the upside ultimately is, but I feel like experimentation time might be called for now.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, it's something that they had seen coming. I mean, I think it wasn't April. It was early. It was springtime when Rusty was out there working with both MJ and Prado in the outfield down at AAA. I remember seeing Rusty in Kansas City at some point after that, talking about how he thought that both of them were, ready to be able to play those spots. But I'm not sure how much of it is just experimentation as much as it is for them. For right now at the big leagues, just getting their bats in the lineup because like I said, DH is in that conversation too with those corner outfield and infield spots. But you also at DH, then you have to throw Salvy into that mix when you talk about DH, MJ into that mix at DH as well. So the DH spot gets taken up, and Vinny really isn't going to be an outfield. He's really just going to be first base or DH, so he's not rotating as much as the other guys. So that DH spot is really going to be – you've got multiple candidates for that as well, along with those spots to try to put guys in. But, yeah, I mean, Prado is they feel like he's just going to be such a good defender at first base. I think they know that's where he's eventually going to be every day, but for right now it's a matter of getting everybody's bat in the lineup.
Okay, I want to pick up the trade conversation, but first, let's hear from the University of Kansas Health System.
March 4th, 2015, I got out of the shower and felt a lump in my left breast.
We were able to quickly uncover that she had 2 subtypes of breast cancer, each of them requiring separate and unique treatment plans. This is why you come to the University of Kansas Cancer Center.
It is critical to be treated by a team of experts in that specific cancer type. If you don't start with us, I think you'll have more questions than answers.
Why would you go anywhere else?
Hey, this is Blair. There are several ways to access the Star Sports section. Let me tell you about a couple of them. There's Sports Pass. For $12.99 a month, you get unlimited digital access to all of the Star Sports content, including beat writing, columns, features, pretty much everything we write. The deal renews monthly until you tell us to cancel. For $159.99 a year, you get everything the Star has to offer digitally, including sports and the e-edition. Go to kansascity.com and drop down to the bottom of the page where it says Start a Subscription for more information. Your support has never been more important. As always, thanks for reading and listening. Okay, we're back talking Royals on SportsBeat Live with Vahe Gregorian and Lynn Worthy. And Lynn, in a piece that is posted on kansascity.com that you wrote, J.J. Piccolo was quoted as saying, "We have players other teams value." And I guess we'll find out how much other teams are valuing them by the end of today or by 5 o'clock, as you mentioned. Rivera, obviously valued by the Diamondbacks. What are you thinking? You mentioned earlier Scott Barlow and Josh Staumont as potential trade pieces for the Royals. Whit Merrifield clearly still out there as in trade rumors. Let me ask you, what do you think the Royals can get in return for any one of those guys? What should the Royals be looking for in a return for if one of those guys is traded?
Well, I think that's going to be, that it will be the determining factor because, to hear JJ say that, again, there's guys that they feel like teams have interest in. But when he says things like, well, we'll find out how much interest and we'll see how serious things get, that's basically like, in my mind at least, they need to come to the table with something, with a real offer. Otherwise, we're happy holding on to him is basically what he's telling you. And I don't think that's by mistake that he's putting that out there, that, because every time he talks about how they're valued, he also says there's no problem to hold on to them. Like, I think that another part of that quote was that if they hold on to the players they have, that's fine. But it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, Benintendi was one thing because that's a rental player, but they still got 3 minor league pitchers, and pitching's always coveted no matter what. Whether it's in season, off season, 365 days a year, pitching is coveted. So, and they seem to have checked some boxes off early. I mean, that going back, weeks when we talked about that trade going into the draft to get a guy who looks like potentially maybe the next center fielder. So I'm not sure if there's specific needs. Like I say, pitching is always one of them. I'm not sure that you're going to get a top flight prospect from anybody from one of these guys. Maybe if you package them, maybe you could force it that way. I'm not sure. Just trying to think about it seemed like there's been a lot of minor leaguers shifting around in some of the deals that have taken place so far, whether that's, the ones that have gone on yesterday or even some early this morning. And I didn't quite see, I know former Royal Jorge Lopez got traded by Baltimore, and I did not see what the return was on that. But, I mean, he's a relief pitcher who was an all-star this year, who still has time remaining on his deal, and who you can make. And I think a lot of his numbers were similar to Barlow's, and that I know they're both guys who've done, extended outings and multiple inning saves. I think Jorge's stuff probably plays up more than Barlow's, but so I'm not sure exactly. I wouldn't expect the moon and the stars. I think it's going to be probably minor leaguers, and if they package guys, maybe they can get somebody who's a high level prospect. But I wouldn't think that you're going to get somebody's top 5 or 10 prospect.
And of course, Lopez went to the Twins, I believe, right?
Yeah. Back in the AL Central.
Yep, for sure.
It is interesting, Lynn, that when you talk about the packaging, that's the thing I've been thinking about the most. Like, if you're really going to extract what you think is something that's more front burner, it seems like you're going to need to come with a couple pieces of real value. But obviously it's all about the Rubik's Cube of what team has what needs and how you hit right there. But that's the thing I'm wondering about, whether they're looking for something that can give them a little more pop, more immediate pop, I guess.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, like, you hear from, whether it's people on social media or just fans or talk shows and whatnot, about like, why hadn't they traded some of these guys already? Like, some people point to Witt and say, well, they could have gotten more from him in the past. Well, and it's hard to verify, but I know for a fact the Royals' position on that is that they felt like what they would have gotten back in the past wouldn't have been significantly better than what they had in the minor league system at that time. So you're talking about the guys like, Kyle Isbell or Khalil Lee or somebody like if they were going to trade Witt a couple years ago, it would have been for somebody better than that. And they didn't feel like they had that offer on the table. I don't know if packaging that means that you will get that person that you feel like is better than what you already have. But I think that's what they're aiming for. And I think even in some of JJ's comments, he's talked about making either their major league team or their system better. So I think for them, they're looking for people who are better than the prospects that they have. It's going to be, somebody who's going to be in their top group of prospects, not just some, guys who are minor leaguers that are, taking the shot in the dark.
Makes sense.
The other part of this whole equation, and this is Captain Obvious, but it's something that's really important to think about. Let's just say it in terms of Witt. Like, Whit Merrifield may hold just more value to the Royals as he is than what they can get for him. I mean, again, simplistic point, but that's the thing that they have to be thinking about too. Like, you're not just looking to move guys. You obviously need to open up some spots here and there too, but it's a little more layered than I think people want to think it is sometimes.
Yeah, and with guys who are, again, going back to Benintendi, he was going to be a free agent at the end of this year. But these other guys are still in their team control for, beyond this season. So it's not as though if you don't trade them now that you don't get anything for them. You could still trade them in the offseason, and people will say, well, you could have gotten more for Whit before than if you trade them now. Well, it's like, well, and then what's the difference between trading them now or trading them at the end of the season if you're not going to get what you potentially think you would have gotten before anyway? I don't think, as much as it maybe benefits you in the long run to bring up some younger guys, I don't think it makes you better this season to take Merrifield off of this team right now. Of course, people say, well, who's not worried about this season? Let's just all think about the future. So it'll be interesting. Michael Taylor's name is another one that I've even seen this morning. I think I saw one of the reports that supposedly that, for whatever it's worth, is heating up. I didn't get a quick definition of heating up, but the heating up for some of the guys in the Royals, the relievers, Barlow and Stallman and Taylor. Taylor is interesting because I think I've said before, I almost looked at that Drew Waters trade as a sign that Taylor might be here for a little while, because it sounded like Drew Waters, they pretty much came out and said he's not quite ready yet. They think he's got the potential, but they want to work with him in the minors and with their hitting development people, which means he's not a guy that can step in right now. Or at least that's how it sounded. Maybe they change their mind if they get the right deal. I don't know.
Well, two things for sure. If Whit Merrifield's traded today, he will have gone out on a high note, the home run that put the Royals ahead for good last night. And actually gave him a 2-0 lead, right, and ended up winning 2-1. And then if something does happen, it'll occur while Lynn is in transit to the stadium, and the mad scramble will be on. That's just how it works in our world. Okay, hey, we're gonna watch a video. It's been 2 Sundays, right? It was a Sunday, not this past Sunday, but the previous Sunday when Buck O'Neil was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum put together a video tribute to Buck O'Neil. Bob Kendrick, of course, is a big part of this. And let's watch it. And when we come back, Vahe, tell us how it came about, and I want to get your reaction to it as well. So this is about a 4-minute clip of a tribute to Buck O'Neil from the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum.
The charm, the charisma, the gentle spirit. Whoever had the opportunity to meet Buck O'Neil.
Good to be around you, man. Hey, you still feel good.
No, I just know when to flex, so you can touch and I flex.
The lives were likely changed from a chance encounter with this great ambassador.
I developed passionate love for this man.
I think he's one of the most amazing human beings to ever walk the face of this earth, who just happened to be a great baseball player. Buck O'Neil was a tremendous first baseman for the legendary Kansas City Monarchs. He became a great leader of men, which is why he became such a successful player manager with the Monarchs. After his Monarchs playing career ended, Buck O'Neil would move into Major League Baseball as a scout. He is credited with having signed Ernie Banks to become the Cubs' first black player. He also signed Lou Brock with the Chicago Cubs, Lee Arthur Smith to his first professional contract with the Cubs. So Buck has 3 Hall of Famers that he signed. And while he didn't sign Hall of Famer Billy Williams, he is credited for having kept Mr. Williams in the game, because Billy Williams had quit the Cubs and gone home, and who did the Cubs send to go get him? Buck O'Neil. And Mr. Williams will be the first to tell you that he owes his Hall of Fame career to one Buck O'Neil. And then Buck would then become the first African-American coach in Major League Baseball history, 1962, with the Chicago Cubs. You can feel his spirit when you come here to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. There would not be a Negro Leagues Baseball Museum if it was not for the tireless leadership of Buck O'Neil. I affectionately call the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum the house that Buck built. Back in 2006, when we were waiting on the announcement to see if Buck was going to be one of that group of Negro League players who were being voted on who would be inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame. He missed by 1 vote. I was just devastated. Who handled it better than everyone? Buck O'Neil. Buck O'Neil would push aside his disappointment, go to Cooperstown, deliver this impassioned speech on behalf of 17 others who had gotten in, but all of them were dead. And who became their voice?
Negro League Baseball. All you needed was a bus, and a couple of sets of uniforms. You could have 20 of the best athletes that ever lived. And that's who we are representing here today.
And I say that it was one of the most selfless acts in American sports history.
Whoever's next to you, hold a hand. Come on, you Hall of Famers. Hold hands. All you people out there, hold hands. I want you to sing after me. The greatest thing in all of my life is loving you.
A little over 2 months later,
the greatest thing,
my friend,
in all of my life,
passed away himself.
Is loving you.
As he would call Cooperstown the Valley. You just kind of got an idea that the Valley will be lit up with the spirit of Buck O'Neil when he does finally receive the official induction into a place that he loved, the National Baseball Hall of Fame.
And that official induction came just a few days ago. So well done by the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum and Bob Kendrick, Vahe.
A couple of things, Blair. One is, I never get tired of hearing Bob Kendrick's voice. It doesn't matter what he's talking about. And it just now I was thinking about the soundtracks of our life in sports. And I think anything from John Facenda to Kevin Harlan to Vin Scully to Bob Kendrick, right? I mean, it's just melodic. And the video itself, what's extra interesting about that is it was produced with some help from MLB.com, and it was supposed to be played during the National Baseball Hall of Fame ceremony, and it would have given Bob some voice and more presence at the ceremony itself, which, as we know, was lovely and great, and had a really sweet family tribute to Buck from Angela Terry, Buck's niece. But for those of us who've followed the story of Buck and the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum closely, I think there was a dimension missing by not having the full context of the breadth and depth of his career, and of course the punctuation marks of what the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum has meant. So this would have added a nice tone and touch to the ceremony. It was pretty neat, though, to have it unveiled in Kansas City at a ceremony last week to start a campaign for the Thanks a Million Buck movement, which basically is trying to get 1 million people to give $1 to the museum, and directly towards the finalizing of the Buck O'Neil Education and Research Center. But indirectly, I think there's some hope that this becomes a catalyst for the next phases of what the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum will be. And as Bob Kendrick likes to say, he's no good at keeping a secret, and he loves to drop hints. And Bob has kind of made the point a few times now that the square footage of the museum is, not what it might need to be. And I think we can expect some discussion and exploration in the months to come of a new museum itself.
How about that? All right. That is something to keep a close eye on as the weeks unfold. But when it comes to the Royals and the trade deadline, that's something to keep an eye on every minute. And Lynn Worthy will be doing that today for the Kansas City Star. So Lynn and Vahe, thanks so much, guys, for today's conversation. Big thanks to Monty Davis for putting together the show and the clips and all that he does for SportsBeat Live. And thanks to our sponsor, the University of Kansas Health System. Thanks to our audience for for watching and weighing in today. So we'll be back next week, 10 o'clock on Tuesday morning, talking Royals. We'll also be on later today, 2:30 p.m., talking Chiefs from training camp. Join us for that as well. So, guys, have a great day. That'll do it for today. Thanks to Monty Davis for producing the podcast and the live show, and to our SportsBeat KC staff of Randy Mason, Jeff Rosen, and Chris Fickett. A tip of the cap to Lynn Worthy and to Vahe Gregorian. Thanks, Vahe.
Thank you, Blair.
For sharing their Royals and baseball insights. The best sports page in America was 30 pages full of baseball, NFL training camp, soccer, auto racing news, features, and more. It's called the Morning Sports Edition. Go to liveedition.kansascity.com for more information. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC.